Had a lot of car trouble in my life. I was doing youth ministry down in South Carolina at a small church in Simpsonville, if you know where that is. I didn't think so. But I had a point where I needed to get a car. The reason why is another story that I don't have time to tell, but it's hopefully as interesting as this one. So I had my youth ministry, a couple of families in my youth group were starting looking for me this vehicle because they said, we can't have this guy just walk everywhere. We can't have this guy ride a bike. He's got to be a youth minister. He's got to be at the church at certain times and do things. So they found me a 1989 Plymouth Colt. And it only cost $150. If you pay $150 for a car, you pretty much know what you're going to get. But so I was really excited about it. I was like, wow, I got a car. I've never seen a Plymouth Colt. Isn't that a Dodge? Nope, it was before Dodge bought the name Colt. So I was like, okay. I told my stepdad about it. My stepdad said, man, I used to have one of those. We took it out in the field and used it for target practice. He was a Marine, so I don't know if it was before he enlisted or after. So, it was a pretty decent car. It didn't have any minor problems. It had a couple of major problems. It was a primer gray and a stick shift, and that thing could get up and go and hit. I swear I went from 0 to 60 in about maybe 10 seconds, which is faster than any car I've ever had. But the biggest problem was it had a little oil leak. And by little, I mean if I could somehow have collected the oil that fell out as I was driving and put it back in, I would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of money. You could literally follow my path from where I started driving all the way around Greenville, South Carolina. It's kind of like a family circus cartoon when Billy got called home and you just watched where he was going. You could follow me, so there was no hiding from anybody. I took it one time to get a oil change, and the people at the Pep Boys looked at me like, there is no way we are going to change the oil in this car. The oil is the only thing holding it together. It's like, okay. Then we're not going to do that. So one day I decided to take a drive to go hang out with a group of friends of mine. They lived a little bit further away than I was used to. And we had fun and whatever, and on the way home, the car was rattling. And when you have an oil problem, an oil leak in your car, and you got to drive a 1989 Plymouth Colt, you got to get used to rattling. And rattling, you almost feel like you got the rhythm of the car going. You're rattling down the road and everything's going fine. And I'm in the back roads because I don't want to take the interstates, because if something happens on the interstate, this was the time before cell phones. So I'm driving down the back roads in Simpsonville, and I see, and the rattling's going fine. I'm like, yeah, we're going fast, we're rattling. And suddenly I hear a ka-thunk. I'm like, what was that? That came out of the engine. I should stop and see what that was. I'm a guy who likes to work on things. I could fix the problem. And then I heard another voice. I was the only one in the car. And it might have been mine, but it might have been something else that says, if you stop this car, you're never going to start it again. Okay. So, Lord, I set up a prayer to God. I said, God, get me home. There were 2 red lights and 2 left turns that I had to make without stopping the car. I'm coming up down the road and I see the first light. It's red. I'm like, God, that light's got to turn green before I get to it. And it's red, and it's red. I swear about 2 car lengths before I got to the light, it turned green. Praise God. First obstacle down. Second obstacle, I see the red light. I see the street light from a distance. It's a straight road, and it was pretty dark outside, so you can see these things. And it was still green. But I know what's going to happen it's going to turn yellow. It's going to turn red, but it's still green. And I'm like, oh God, I got to make it, 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 got to make it. And just as I breached the threshold, it turned yellow as I was going underneath. Then comes the left turns. Fortunately, the traffic was, there's always a traffic coming by. Left turns are dangerous. And finally, there was no traffic coming just as I rounded the first left turn. And then I came to the next left turn, which was almost immediate, and there was no traffic. And just as I reached the top of the hill that led to the house that I was staying on, my car stopped. The engine cut out, and I coasted down the hill, right around to the house, and parked it in front of the house that I was staying at. And that was the last ride of the car we called the Gray Ghost.